Okay. Right. Hey everyone, welcome to the July Meetup. Those online, can you just confirm that you can hear us all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We can hear you. So good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, the team's room is down for this room, so we've got the hub that's going to do all the work today. Welcome to the July edition. Just for those online, just make sure you're keeping yourself on mute. You can more than welcome to come off mute if you have a question or you want to ask anything. Use the raise hand feature. We are keeping an eye on it, and then of course we're uploading our recordings to YouTube channel as well. Now tonight we're just going to cover in the news. Greek is then going to take us through stored procedures in Power Apps, which is actually now generally available. So that's cool. We'll go through some of the new general available features. David's then taking us through Canvas apps offline. I think this is something that can be used quite a lot. It's a feature that's been around for many years already. I don't think people realize it is possible or realize how to get started with it. So hopefully David will show you some nice tips and tricks around that. Are you also doing a tech tip on top of that for us? Okay, perfect. And then we're going to have a bit of a community discussion, just talking about how much has AI actually changed the way you work on a daily basis. Has it at all? Are you utilizing it daily, weekly, monthly? I think it would just be good to just try to understand how people are making use of this new technology. So it's important.
Take the piece out if I can is online.
Right, perfect. Okay. So just a couple of news items. There's not much around at the moment since we're coming fresh cold and that, but one of the things, co-authoring in Canvas apps is now in public preview to everyone, including sovereign cloud customers as well. What this means though, 10 people can work on the same app, Canvas app, simultaneously. This might not always be a good idea depending on who you're working with, but it's a similar concept to how you worked in Excel and Word and PowerPoint. Same sort of idea. You'll see when people are working on certain elements, that element is locked for them. If you want to turn this on, just go into the settings, and there is a new slider to enable co-authoring. Okay, so up to 10 people in one app, it's not bad.
Just if it's in preview and it's your app, then it's just sorry for you.
Sorry?
If it's in preview still,
Yeah.
and it corrupts your app while you're working, it's just
Yeah, it's preview, sorry. Or as David says, just do it. Other one that's also cool is the ability to share and install components with the catalog that's in there. Now, it is built on the solution framework. Now, what this does mean is you can install it from any environment, any location. You can update items inside there, make sure people are utilizing the latest components. That way you can get a lot more consistency across the apps inside of the organization. You build up the components, easily share them in the catalog, and then manage it from there. There is a process to get the components authorized in the catalog. There's a two-step process, so it's not just like anyone can publish or push components through to the items. We've also made some layout changes. There is a new feature that's brought out when you're looking at the settings. So we've got new, preview, experimental, and retired. This is just to help us manage all the new features coming in. So the features that have gone GA are going to sit in new. And then once they've been GA for a while, they're going to move into retired. We thought this way, if you put it on, you can still decide whether you want to roll out the new features or not. And this will give them a way to stage the rollouts a bit more. We're also bringing in Power Apps on realware devices. So this is quite interesting. I mean, these realware.
It's still there.
No, it's there. So, okay, that's fine. I'll just check the project. So I think it's that side. That's probably one of the guys there. So the realware devices, this is a mixed reality device, smart glasses essentially. We've had teams on there for a while, and there's been a lot of third-party developers who have been building out apps on those devices. These are used heavily in mining and manufacturing industries, where the guys need their hands free. They want a device that's not as expensive as the HoloLens, but gives them a similar type experience. That's the real way. Power Apps is now going to be launched on there from this month. So, yeah, there are a couple of customers in South Africa with real benefits. So, this is going to be a big one. There's a lot of apps that you can use now on there to bring us through. Just some of the features that have moved to new, so the GA features, so modern controls, the SQL Server stored procedures, so those are officially GA. Some of the ones that have been moved to retired. This doesn't mean you're retiring the features. This just means that in GA long enough for us to move them to retired, so it's just a standard setting inside, which is part of the apps now inside there. Okay. And also, last one, we've got some learning and documentation updates. So there's a couple of new training parts, create AR builder, grounded prompts with database, and then also get started with security concepts in database. Definitely, this one is going to help a lot. Definitely needed. People wrapping their heads around security in database is sometimes a challenge. And they've also updated a number of other training parts on Microsoft Learning Platforms, which is going to be great. There's also another video that's been launched for YAML. So YAML is starting to be used more and more inside Power Platform. Those who don't know, YAML gets another markup language. Why we need it? There's a great video on there just to teach you the basics on working with YAML inside.
But this is the last one. There's no more. Just quickly, going back there, that you time tab, I think that's for deprecated functionality.
Is it deprecated functionality?
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully not GA just moves to retired. Yeah.
So it's got things like
they no longer are now, no, they're officially GA and no longer have switches in preview. So you can't turn them on or off anymore, they're just generally available.
so on here it says these features will be replaced or removed soon.
Is it?
Selected information icon. So these are things like the on-app start navigation.
Yes.
That they're trying to get rid of.
Okay. That's where, let me double check that and I'll come back to it in a moment to see. Because from the article that I was reading, this is based on stuff that is now officially rolled out. Everyone is using it. They need to switch to toggle it on and off.
I
I really understood retired means it's been decommissioned. Yeah, that's what I originally thought. And then looking at the, I mean, formula level prefetching, would that be retired?
That shouldn't be there. The nice word is deprecated.
Yeah, deprecated, yeah. How are people on the call here through the surface hub? Yeah.
So I think those examples are right. So you have things like collection accessing component scope. Block that, you can still go and turn it on, although at some stage you're going to have to search like backward compatibility.
Let me find out, see if I can find out more details on the retired section.
What happens with absolute root and has it that's running?
Once a teacher gets retired.
Yeah.
Well, the way I understood and the way that was mentioned in this blog post was that it still stays there, it's not there. But it's pointed out that they're getting rid of that. I'm assuming that functionality which is not working.
On slides, there's a lot of absence.
Yeah, on slots especially.
So that's just the on-start navigation. So
So it will still run if it's there.
I've seen it in the past, so it'll if it's still in runtime, we haven't touched it, it'll continue running. I think if it runs for a very long time, and the actual engine in the back end stops looking at it, then it'll run. But usually what happens first is you touch an app for the first time in a year, and then you just have like red all over. Then one of the things that you use now says it's not running quickly. So that I've seen. But if it's running, in my experience, it keeps on running. It's to be a pretty big charge.
Or to break
So
that.
anything.
Yeah,
Best practice. You are actually supposed to publish your app when new features happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we all do that.
And that's like one of the things in the COE, you can go in and see when last an app was published, trained and published. So then you can start to get a gauge on how out of date your apps potentially are.
So usually if you see the last modification date is like 2 years ago, you hit the edit button. Because what also happens is you edit and it updates immediately. You
Yeah.
can still go back to previous versions, but then you know you're going to have to get some songs. It's going to be a long day.
Edit that one first.
100%. Any other questions or any other things that anyone else has picked up in the news that they find interesting?
I picked up in the, I don't know if it's been there for a while, but in the formula editor, the code editor block thingy, what's the right word for that? Yeah, the editors, the
Expression mark.
expression bar, let's do it. So if there's an error in your formula, in the scroll bar it now shows you where it is.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so like if you're working in VS Code, it gives you.
Like a grade, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And,
Oh, that's one, isn't it?
and then it also shows you where your cursor currently is, which is not that useful, but it also shows you there's an error where it is.
Oh, that's handy. That's one. Perfect. So with that, I think I'm done. Let me just double check. Yeah, and yeah, perfect. Okay, so Krika, I'm going to hand over to you to take us through stored procedures in LMS.
You.
Push the button.
Cool.
Yeah, works good.
Perfect. Everything feels super slow. I don't know if it's just been turned. Cool. So I'm just going to do a little bit of stored prompts in Power Apps. So anyone, while it was, now that it's generally available, if anyone tried it while it was a preview? Cool. Anyone online tried it? Played with it yet? I guess not. Okay, so
This
just
is such a cool feature, though.
it is really a cool feature. So just a few things. So when it was still in preview, you can see my stats dated late. When it was still in preview, so I guess they don't have to switch it on anymore, right? But if when it was still in preview, you had to like switch it on and allow for SQL Server stored procedures. And then I'm actually going to show you, because who needs Death by PowerPoint?
That toggle is now under new.
It's now sitting under new.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right at the bottom, see all the stored procedures on, which means it's GA, but it's on button.
I want to just go to another screen. That's all. Okay, cool. Now it's going to be a good demo when it starts like that. Cool. So I've just made a simple app. But first of all, just to give you a little bit of background, why this feature is so cool. It's previously when you wanted to call stored procedures or get access from the stored procedures, you would have to have automated flow. So that would have to be treated in your app. Then you would have to go to the flow, pass the parameters that you pass from your app, and then it would do the flow and bring back those the details back or the results back. So now you can actually do that directly from your app. So it's supposed to help with processing time. However, one of the limitations I've seen is obviously if your SQL or your stored procedure is a bit complex, it could still actually have a negative impact on the load of your app. So I've just done something very simple. So as Mike said, to actually activate this feature, you would still have to switch it on under new. And then what you would do is under your data sources, you would obviously still, because this is a premium, this feels so slow.
It's because
It's going through Teams and
Okay.
I don't know why it's gone off there. Jonathan's gone to the
Am I still sharing? Woo! I think I've dropped out of the Teams call. So
You don't need to be on the Teams.
I'm still on a Teams call.
You don't need to be on the Teams.
No, I have to share my screen.
Well, usually you just take the HDMI out.
Yeah, that is having a look at it now.
Does Karika need to be on the Teams call?
Yes, she does. She's on the Teams call. She's sharing.
No, it's disconnected to me. My teams have been doing this the whole day.
It's not anyone.
I'm glad it's not me alone.
It just restarts every half an hour.
It resets. And then it drops my call and it does something and then I have to rejoin.
Just do a Windows key.
Windows.
Keys. Ah, that's why. There we go.
There we go.
And then share it.
And then I answer it. Yes.
Yeah.
So the next issue to solve is why teams keep dropping on
I'll get right on.
Perfect. So back to the point, you've now switched it on. You want to use stored props in your Python. How you do that is you would need a connector, obviously, to your SQL database. This is a premium connector. I'm not going to talk licensing. Licensing questions can be directed that at you.
Michael.
But it is a premium connector. And you do need, obviously, a data gateway, on-premise data gateway. Cool. So when you want to access your stored procedures, how you would do it is click on Add Data. You would say, I want to add some SQL data. It's going to be that server. So previously, if you haven't switched on that stored procedure function, you would not see this tab here, which says stored procedures. You would just see the tables that you can select. So once it's switched, so if you don't see this stored procedures tab, you know you haven't switched it on. Once you've switched it on, you can actually click on stored procedures and it will make available all your stored procedures in your database. Something that's also important to note is this little thing here. It's very important to tick this. So as the little information says here, select this checkbox only if you're certain that this item does not contain behavioral functions and side effects. It's like a little warning there, very subtle, but it's there nonetheless. The reason for that being is the way that a gallery loads on a page is it refreshes the data frequently. So if you've got something that could trigger something else that shouldn't be triggered at that point in time, don't tick that box and don't use it in galleries, right? Or tables. So that is how you would select the stored procedures that you want access to and want to use in your app. Okay, so I've already done that. I've ticked all of that. I'm happy to use it in galleries. Now I just built a simple form because now I actually want to start using these stored procedures in my app. So how do you use your stored procedure app? We've actually got the IntelliSense. I haven't had issues with the IntelliSense. I know some users have complained that parameters aren't picking up properly. It's not getting the schema properly. I haven't had any issues. I don't know if it's just my database being very simple. But how you would do it is if you wanted to use or access your stored prop, you would start with your name and you'd see it comes up very nicely. So you can actually see this is the list of all the stored props that I do have available. So let's say I choose create customer. The moment I put the open brace, should just say it. No, it's not. Anyways, it would give you like a nice little, I don't know why it's doing this. The dot operator cannot be found. That's very interesting. Cool.
You're just demoing that error on the sideboard that shows you where
That's what I'm actually doing. Completely understand what I'm trying to do. But anyways, so in an ideal world, where it was working, it would give you like this little curly brace, and it would list for your stored props. It would list. It's because I said I haven't had this issue before. That's why it's like, oh, but you will have it now. It'll give you the parameters that your stored prop needs. So if you've got a stored variables that need to be populated, it will pop up the variables that you would need for that stored prop. So in order to create a customer, I needed P name and I needed P email. And then you could obviously use the fields in your app to populate those. And then just to show you that it does work, and also show you that that is what the stored prop says. So here's the stored prop called create customer. We just get this. So here's the P name and P email that's required for this stored prop. Right? So something that I've also seen that is a limitation that some people have had issues with is, in this case, it's just the normal creating, inserting into a SQL table, but with multiple returns on certainly less data, you've got multiple return result sets, it only takes the first one. So that's some of the limitations that I've picked up or that I've read about from a stored prop. So let's go JoziPug, just the email, JoziPug, ms.com, add new customer, and there we go. Right? So you can see it's very quick, it's very fast, it triggers the stored prop. It's so much faster than when you have to do it through a workflow or Power Automate, because now you're doing it directly from the app. It triggers your stored prop, sends back the results. So, and the same works for delete. So let's just delete any of our other users. So I want to delete Hannah. And there we go, removed. Okay, and that is also a stored prop just to delete a customer. So I've just taken a very simple example. You all would know what your SQL stored props look like. Then just also the same applies for products. Let's say I've got a product table with a stored prop to add some products. We'll just add some real weight glasses. So simple. What's the price?
10 rand.
We can make it 10 rand. And let's say we have 100 of those. Cool. It's going to be $10, but that's fine. We don't mind. We can do it for $10. Cool. So we've got some real weight glasses. Then once again, the principle is exactly the same. So just looking once again at the code that I've used on here. It is really very simple. So for this one, I was accessing the create product stored procedure, which was looking for a P name and a P price and the quantity. And that is passed to the stored procedure, writes it to the table. So also just to show that it does actually write to the table. So if I now go to products, there's the real wear glasses. So it actually does write to the database. Cool. And then the last one, this one was a fun one for me. So if I go to orders, so this is now, orders is once again something simple. It writes to the orders table, but then on the left-hand side, you've got a list of just working out what stock is left once the order has been placed. So you can see that being updated in real time. So if we look at the real wear glasses, we've got 100 in stock. We'll let Andrew Thomas buy some of that real wear glasses. Let's say he buys 10 of those. And he places an order. Okay. So he's placed an order, but now we want to see what Andrew Thomas has bought. So you click on get details, so you can see this is what his order details are. We can see there's 90 of the stock left. But what that does in the background is obviously, once again, it's all through stored props. For place order, we do the place order stored procedure, which takes the parameters or the variables that it needs. And then with the get details, this is where it got interesting for me. And I'm going to talk you through just what I had to do, because it's an issue that I've been experiencing, right? So with all the demo videos that's available on stored props in the Canvas app, they show you how you just do a collection and you call your stored prop, right? And it gives you your data On our side, I don't know why. I don't know if it will work different for different people, but I don't get that result when I do it. I just get some nice question marks, and then the collection's just like, I don't know what you want to do with this data. So what I had to do is I needed to set the results of this result set from this stored prop. I needed to set it in a variable. So just to show you what this variable looks like. So this one is for our customer details. So this is what the variable looks like. This is actually what your result set looks like in SQL, right? So now at least I don't get the question mark, but now I needed a way to get whatever is in that variable into a collection. So then what I had to do is I actually had to do a for all, because sometimes your result set, I mean, a person who placed an order could have placed multiple orders. This is just one. So I needed to do for all of the details in my bar custom order details, which is my variable. And then something that I also found is obviously I can put in my collection the fields that I want, but I had to go this record dot. And when I went this record dot, it didn't pick up the fields that's available in my variable. So you have to be very sure of the spelling, what is available. So it didn't give me an error, but it also didn't get picked up by the intent things. And this is eventually the workaround I had to do to be able to populate this gallery with my collection to show the results of the orders. So if I just show you a result set for John Doe, he's got some previous orders. So he's got 2 orders. And just to show you once again what this would look like in the variable. So this is how it comes through on the variable, right? But that needed to be broken down so that you can actually populate your gallery with that collection set of that array. But yeah, that's pretty much using stored props in a Canvas app in a nutshell. Any questions?
Can you show us the code behind the get details back again?
Absolutely. So something also that is important is, which isn't just obvious by default, is obviously you've got your stored prop here, right? This bit here is your stored procedure code, which is your stored procedure with the parameters that it's looking for. However, in your variable, you also have to go dot result things dot table 1 to get it into that array that I'm showing you. So that's also something that's very important to put down or after. And it's only for when you are wanting to get data back. The rights to, like an insert or delete, all of that is not needed. You don't need to put the dot result sets dot table 1 because you're not bringing anything back from the database. Any other questions?
It's the same as when you do a parse JSON. It's probably the same.
Probably, yeah. I just needed a workaround, so that's probably not best practice. There might be multiple ways to do it, but I just need to get that data out of the variable to actually display it, because else there's just no way to show that data. But yeah, that's pretty much stored props for that. Quick and easy. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's his fault? He's still shaking. Yeah. Was curious. The machine is still going on.
So I've got my setup is a little bit longer, so John.
Me on the spot here. Trying to think of appropriate jokes. Setting up a science experiment.
I was always worried about putting wood to a certain day. Okay, so let me join the Teams call quickly. Yeah, you're going to tell us a joke. Jonathan seems good.
I learned something interesting today, which probably was obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me. They said a few years ago, cassettes had a side A and a side B, so it's only logical that the next one will be C. I was like, wow! I didn't know. Here's some useless information for today. Oh gosh.
Okay, I think I'm doing the right thing here.
More? That's what I'm worried.
I can everybody volume here. Right, can everybody hear me online?
Looks like it.
Somebody give us a thumbs up if you can hear us online.
Yep.
Okay, great. Cool. So, Canvas apps offline. That's probably one of the first questions when we started with Power Apps. And you started talking to customers about Power Apps. And the first thing is, yeah, they want to build it into this app and they want to, then like, yeah, you can't really take it offline. Okay, so you need to be online. So it's actually been a very hot topic for the past 7 or 8 years or 7 years, 6 years. How's Power Apps? And then at some stage, you could use some functionality. Me and Tian spoke about it earlier to actually take it offline, but that's really a coded solution. So you have to keep track of if this app is connected, and if it is connected, then you can write it into the data source directly, but if it's not, you have to save it into a local collection, and when you exit the app, you want to save the data into a file, into the local file system. So it was possible, but you really needed to have your ducks in a row. And if your ducks anything like mine, sometimes they're a little bit adventurous. Second like to be in a row. So it became extremely complicated to do large apps and take it offline. So what Microsoft has done is to actually develop something like a sync engine that will run in the background of these apps and take care of all those things for you. So you don't need to worry about whether you're working offline or whether you're connected or not. If you're using Database, that's the key here. So if you're going to use SQL or SharePoint, you're still going to use load data and save data. But if you're using Database, you can now easily take that offline. Anybody played with that functionality in the past before? Yeah. So a lot of that comes from the model-driven apps. So you could have done this in model-driven apps for a long time. And because it's using Database in the backend, so a lot of that is just now being exposed to a Canvas app. But it's very exciting. Let me show you what it does.
Do you have to do the duplicate?
Duplicate your screen. No, your HDMI is not plugged in.
Oh. That's what I'm sharing on wireless team. Okay, so I'm not going to share it on the team.
No, still share it with the team. Because remember, this HDMI goes to the projector.
Oh, so you can, okay.
That goes to it. So if you want to duplicate your screen,
Okay.
This is just too.
Absolutely, my nuts.
Stop ducks and squirrel. No, not PC screen only.
There you go.
Okay, so I quickly.
There we go.
There we go. All right, so if you read this article from on the Microsoft Learn platform, you'll see that they talk about the two different options. The first one is to use offline support in Dataverse, and that's really the one you want to be using. And the other one is the load data and save data. So if you're using SharePoint or SQL, you're still going to have to go that route. So it's got tutorials and all of these sort of things to do that manual syncing, but that's not what we're going to be covering tonight. Right, so also in the Learn documentation, they've got this very nice document to show you how to set it up and how to configure it. It's actually very easy to do. We're going to do it now together. So it's just there are a few limitations. So things like relate and unrelate, update if, and remove if. Those functions aren't yet supported offline. Sure, it's going to come soon. Also, if you have many-to-many relationships, those aren't supported offline. So just go and read through these documents if you're planning to build an app for this, so that you know exactly where the gotchas are. So you don't figure those out in the middle of the project. Right, so what I'm going to show you is, first of all, just to set it up, and then we're going to go and just look at some new functions that's now available in PowerFX, and then go and show you how to actually build a Power App. So the first thing you need to do is in your table, so I'm just going to go into the solution here. That. So I've created this solution called Offline Power App, and I've got two tables. So I'm not going to, two very simple tables, just to show you how this process works. So you'll see we've got the equipment register, and we've got a list of plants there. So for now, we're just going to focus on the equipment register. If you open this up, and you go into properties, see under advanced, there's an option. There are many options, and these things are not particularly new because this comes from the Dynamics world. A lot of these things have been there for a long time. But one of the options there is can be taken offline. And that means that that table is going to be set up with all the appropriate tools and wizardry to be able to run on a mobile device without being connected to the server. So you do need to tick that part. And then you can go and create an app. So we're going to create the app outside of the solution and then put it in the solution because it needs to be in a solution. The only reason why I'm going to do that is I'm going to do it. I don't want to build this app from scratch, so I'm going to create this app from data, which doesn't guarantee support. It isn't supported from in a solution. So I'm just going to quickly build that. Just go out of the solution, go to apps, and say new start with data. Select an existing table, and we're going to look at the equipment register. This new experience is lovely.
Yeah.
Compared to the old building apps from the old one really sucked. This is and the way that it's responsive, all of those nice things, really makes our lives easier.
That's learning exercise as well. Okay.
Yeah, figure out how the responsive containers work.
Yeah.
A nice learning exercise is to build it from scratch.
That's all.
Well, this helps you see and understand and then get on from scratch.
Yes, exactly.
Right, so there's the app. Like I said, very nice. You can go and select the equipment, go and edit it, update it, delete it. All that, so that's working lovely. Right, so I'm just going to save this app and say this is our offline app. And then I'm going to put it in a solution. Up there. Go into solution, go into apps, and then add an app. Canvas app. Like that. This is also, they fixed, there was for a while we created a new app that wasn't available for a while, and then they fixed that. It's lovely. Great, and it's there. It's a nice change. All right, before we jump into that, to modify that, I'm going to show you some of the PowerFX formulas that now you use in order to work with the syncing and all of these sort of things. So we're going to go into that app just now, but let's first go and have a look at these offline functions. Edit that in the new tab. Take a sip of my water because I'm spilling over everything over here. Quite stressful.
You know, it would be cool if you started with existing data. Is if you could choose like more than one table and it designs the same screen.
I think it's going to come because if you create an app through Copilot, you can now do multiple screens
Oh, that would be lovely.
and multiple tables.
That is awesome. I haven't tried that yet.
I think the experience is that the actual back-end wizardry should be very similar. So. Right, so first function we're going to look at is the host function. So if you go, as an example, and you say host dot in a Canvas app, you know, you're going to get a whole bunch of options. So these are some of the options. First one is offline enabled, true or false. Okay, so that is whether the Canvas app is enabled for offline access. So you can build logic in the app to know, to actually look into the Canvas app settings to see if this thing is able to go offline.
Yeah.
So that's pretty. OS type, Windows. That's awesome. So think about everything that you can do with this now to have specifics for devices. It gives you the native session ID. So in the past, we've used the GUID function to simulate the session ID for logging or these sort of things. And now it just gives you the real session ID. As well as the tenant ID, the version of the player, and then offline enabled. Okay, so I'm not sure happy with that, but I wonder if there's another one that I missed. So, no, that's all of them. So, okay, I need that one. Right, so that's the host function, which is then we've got the connection function. So if you go connection dot, it's going to go give you a bunch of options. First one is it connected? So in other words, am I online? Can I talk to the data source directly? What is the last sync date and time? That's it. That's what we call. So I think this app hasn't synced ever, so that's probably the default. So if you have no dates, if you null date things, then at least it's 1970, not just 70.
Yeah.
I can be past that now. Right, and then the connection, last sync message, and then there's a whole bunch of messages.
Like success.
Success, or there's, yeah, exactly. And then it can tell you whether there's data waiting to be uploaded, all of those sort of things, which you can then use in the app in order to manipulate icons and messages and these sort of things. So you can tell the user if there's something that needs to be synced, or whether the data
sync button.
Yeah, or whether the data that he's looking at is currently outdated, or these sort of things. So also that might be relevant on, especially on Apple devices, where if on an Android device, if you close it, Android says no problem. Or if you put it in the background, Android says no problem, you do what you want to do. And it can still sync in the back end and all that. If you put an Apple app in the back end, so it's going to sync. The OS takes control of that. If you read in the documentation, they don't tell you exactly what you need to do, but they say if your app is used frequently, then Apple sort of is more inclined to allow it to sync in the background kind of thing. But it doesn't seem like there's clear rule sets around that. And then the other one, which I'm very excited about, and I think that's going to open up additional functions in future, is the show host info. Now, this opens up a pop-up in the device that shows you all the syncing information where you could go and sync it, force a sync, and get sync statistics around it. Now, what I'm excited about that is it feels like at the moment the only thing that you could do is show offline sync info. But I'm wondering if this is not maybe the show host info that launches pop up on the device, maybe allows more native interaction with the devices in the future. So I think there's some things coming. All right, so that's all the theory. Let's jump back into that app of ours. Okay, so that. Right, so there's our offline app, so we're going to open it up. Get it in the new tab. So right now, if you take this app, open it up on a different device, on a Windows device, the Windows app player. Who's using the Windows app player? So if you open it in Windows app player or on Android or on Apple devices, you won't be able to take it offline. It's still online, even though the tables that it's using is set to be taken offline. It's governed by the app, not only by the tables. Okay, so should I open already? My ducks being of interest again. Okay, cool. So there's our offline app. So if I launch this now, you'll see it's exactly the same. It's just not a solution. I wonder if this is the solution. Check that. Just to be sure. You don't want to give it a reason not to work in a demo. All right, so we're now going to tell this app that we want to enable the offline functionality. And that's going to give us a new screen. Now, that new screen, the first time I worked with this, I sort of wondered, okay, what happens if I don't use that screen? It's still going to work. And the answer is yes, it'll still work. That screen just makes it easier for you to understand how to interact with it. So if we go into settings, we'll see at the bottom here, it says can be used offline. Turn it on, and you'll see that it's generally available because you don't have to go and turn it on in the preview settings or anything like that anymore. And then it's going to ask you select an offline profile. So for the Dynamics guys, this is old. This is exactly the same that you would do for a model-driven app. But this is now auto-generated by the Canvas app. And what it does, I'll show you where to access it because it's actually pretty important. The auto-generated one isn't always going to give you what you want. But by default, you select auto-generated, close it, and you'll see now automatically added a second screen. So we only had one screen earlier. Now there's another screen with nothing on it except this little icon over here. And that's the only thing that we really want. Everything else in here, we're not going to use. If you look on this, you'll see the on select uses that show host info. So if the user clicks on that icon in the device, it's going to give them the sync information for this app, which is very, very cool. If you go into the icon selection, see that there's a switch statement that runs on the connection function that will show you if it's connected, it will show a glow. If it's disconnected, it will show you a warning. If there's stuff that waits to be uploaded, it changes the icon based on when last the sync actually happened. So all that we're going to do is just copy that, put it in our app, and just plonk it in the container over there, and just change the full. It's not 100% aesthetically correct, but just stick with me. Cool. That's
It's called portions.
there's it. Oh, I'm just going to change the here. That's primary button. And then I'm going to delete that other screen. There's nothing else on that other screen that you need to worry about that enables this functionality. That actually also doesn't enable the functionality. It just makes it easier for you to surface and talk to the user about what's happening in the background. So we're going to delete that. Save the app. Publish the app. And we should be good to go.
Cool.
Easy as that.
It's complicated.
Okay, let's see if our app is here. So,
You did that.
Oh, restrictions.
Nice. All right, let's give that a second. While that's running, I'm going to just show you where to access that offline profile, because then you'll see what. So if you go to the admin sector and you go and select your environment, and you go into settings, so that's open. See under user permissions, there is an option for mobile configuration. So there's the one that the system just auto provisioned, and it's published, which means it should be active, it should be ready to go. But if you open it up, you'll see that it does a few things. One is, what are the tables that should be taken offline as part of the program? Okay, and that's very important. And so it's during some of my experience on this, I picked up that this thing doesn't publish properly. And then if you try and access the app, it just bombs out. It just tells you that contact the administrator. Like, I am the administrator. so then I had to actually go in here and change this. If I manage this, you'll see it gives you a whole lot of information around. So you can go and add tables manually, which is important. But here you can say what should be synced to the local device. So should it sync all rows? Should it show only relative or related rows, or custom? So you can have filters and these sort of things to show what should be synced. How should handle relationships and how should handle scheduled syncs. So this is a very important piece of configuration. And even though they tell you it's auto-generated, sometimes it doesn't quite auto-generate that well. So you need to be aware of this. And so if by now you haven't figured this out, you need a license to access this. All of this is running in database.
Delvin, just a question. So you just had one table at the moment you have to fix that one offline. If you had multiple tables, would it have picked up on a multiple table?
Yes. So these are offline. Have a look at the messages that it shows you now. So you'll see it's now going to tell you it's syncing some of the tables, installing the app on your device, okay? Downloading data, almost 3 tables. And just to answer your question, there is a related table. So there's actually 2 related. So one is the plants, the other one is the user table, because it has an owner field on it that ties back to so it's caching all 3 of those. Right. And there's my data. And what's happening now is it's always working locally. So it'll always be quicker than accessing it directly on the server. it's then just gonna sync it in the background and sync it automatically. So if I create a new record and I'll demonstrate this now. So let's say this is a convincing tool, which is another name for admin. For a split second, you would have seen that icon changed to show that this data. So I'm now going to take my device offline. Sorry for the guys on the call. But I'm going to take the device offline and show you what that icon is going to do and how you're going to do that. So for that, I'm going to start with my iPad.
And while you're busy doing that, David, just to make sure I was correct, is you have to switch the app to have that offline capability. So even if your tables were set up to allow for offline and you didn't switch that on for the app, it would have stayed online. You have to do it on the app as well.
Yeah, so the app, think about it like this, that you could have the same table in different apps. But the way that you want to sync that data relates to the app, the usage of that table, not the table itself. In a certain app, you could have certain sync settings, where in other apps, you could have different ones. Right, so the first test in this is to drink water without spilling on the equipment. The second one is to get my iPad to present. So let's try that.
So you're not really going to have the people.
No. People didn't juggle people.
No.
There has actually been one that did the
Sorry, bad joke. Okay, that was surprisingly easy. Right, so there's my iPad. I'm going to launch the app. Downloading data. And it gives you a little pop-up at the top. So this app can now be used offline without any connection. That is right. And I'm going to need to go and create any of that. Okay, so now I'm going to turn all the internet access. So now you'll see at the top, there's a little icon. So it tells me this thing is not connected.
That is very cool.
So if I go and say, what are we going to create? What tool? What equipment? Be boring. Say laptop. It's a laptop created, and you'll see it's very fast. I mean, it's quite just created this thing in an instant.
That's like
That's an icon change.
Everything is up, and the icon change. If I had a prize, I would have So yeah, that shows me that there's data on local that hasn't yet been uploaded.
That's good.
But how cool would it be to click on that and it would actually tell you what's going on? And that's exactly what that show has info. So
Look at how many rows. That is insane.
So one row waiting to be uploaded. You can go and have a look at what the storage on the device is, the actual details of those tables to see which table it is that has data, when it was last synced for each of the tables. So that's phenomenal. I mean, that's really right. So let's go and say we've created a laptop. We're going to delete the hammer. Delete that and okay, so there's a convincing tool on the laptop now. If I look online, so if I go into my Windows app, this is now obviously still connected. There, everything is still nice, beautiful, no changes, the data is still intact. The moment I go and turn on the internet access over here, see that it will automatically pick up that there's no connection, syncs the data, and it's gone. So if I now click on that, it shows me that it's synced, everything is ready, it's pushed up the changes. And if
you didn't do it on your iPad.
Sorry?
No, you did. It just
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not. There's
No, it's not.
So
Yeah, so I've turned this now on the iPad, and that sends up all the information. If I click on that, it shows me that there's no changes waiting, everything is set up. And when I go back into the app, I don't have a refresh button. That's unfortunately, still need to refresh this, so I can change that. Okay, so I'll publish that. So if I now refresh that, you'll see that there's the laptop and the others have gone.
That is
So I'm just going to open it up again just to get the refresh on my Windows player as well.
If you'd used what's the user-defined function, so the user-defined function to show last
Name formulas.
names formulas, yeah. Then you wouldn't have to refresh.
No, that's what I did. In theory. Because you know what IT stands for? In theory.
I did not know that.
Now you know.
Now I know.
Alright, so
In theory.
there's my Windows app opening up again. And got two hammers. Oh, that happened.
But it does say this app can now be used by.
Right, so let's see why there's the hammer over there on my.
It did seem. Did you refresh?
Open it up here, it's our refresh button, the new version of that. On that, this is now my iPad. Okay, so there's a refresh over there. So they have got a convincing tool and a laptop. And yeah, I still have a hammer and a convincing tool, so I'm not too sure what's happening. What's applying. I don't think that there's a bug in this.
In theory.
So play the little web player to see what's actually cooking. Okay, so my Windows player is updated. So go and tell that to just check for updates. Okay. Refresh it over here, laptop. Okay, so the Windows player, then it's sync automatically when I open the app, so I have to go and do that. So I picked up that sometimes with the different devices, it's not always instantaneous.
Is there a way to can you put a button on to force it?
Great question, I'm not sure.
That big out to advance time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be
Profile instead of 10
10 minutes. What I expected the Windows app to go when I launched it was to just do a sync,
Yes.
but obviously it didn't. So
Smart. No one uses that Windows apps.
it's about the button or the function.
Yeah.
I think the best way to do it would be to redirect into this.
And then check for updates.
Yeah, and you can check out updates. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It works for delete, new records, updates. Anybody want to ask me anything about updates? Yes, Michael.
No. Are there any column types that are not supported? So, like a formula column, would that still work? Fine.
So here's the profile limitations. They don't really anything about formula columns. I don't think.
Okay, virtual tables aren't supported.
Yeah, so I don't think formula columns are going to work. To be honest, I haven't tried it. But here's a list of all the restrictions. So calculate it happens on the server.
So you have a separate profile per canvas.
Oh, Can I ask, have you tried to make a button so instead of cutting off the Wi-Fi, but a button to tell it this app right now go offline? I want it to go offline because I don't want it to try and sync because I'm going into a bad area or whatever.
So
you know I'm putting it off.
it's actually offline by default. Okay. So it'll always interact with the local data store first. And if it's online, it will just send that out in the background. So you don't have to tell it to go offline because it's already offline.
But can you tell it to go offline on extreme purpose?
Like, it's already offline.
So tell your device to go off.
So what you're saying is to stop it from sync.
Yes. Yeah. So it's just gonna, if it's you're working with the local data always. And then if that connection falls away, the only thing that changes is it's not going to try and sync it anymore. But then you're already working in the local cache from the local data store. Does that make sense?
Is that an example of where you maybe want them?
Yeah.
You the Kruger National Park. It is internet connection, but it's HSTPA. You know, like it's shocking. So it just it's just causing havoc what it's trying to do in the background. Just chill. Stonefly. Okay. Don't try.
I'm not sure about that. I can check that out.
No, that's why I was asking, have you tried?
No. Yeah, I get that. I've seen it. So about the updates, it says that it sorts out conflict automatically, or to magically. And when I read that, I was also like, yeah, sure.
Some further explanation is there.
I did a few tests and I couldn't figure out what wins. So if you go and change different fields in the record, then it sorts that out. But if you change the same field, I would expect that the one that was changed last,
The last thing.
but what I found is almost like the local version. So
But then it's like what happens if someone deletes it offline and then another person updates that same record?
it's a great question. And I suspect in other scenarios that I've worked, the deletion will trump that. So the deletion will work well. But that's a great test. We can actually test it.
I mean, it strikes me as being very similar to AD in terms of because you've got multiple in the same data set, separated, you've got sort of multi-master model, right? Then eventually it's going to come down to something like a timestamp or an update sequence number or something like that, right? And eventually, I imagine at some point it's going to get something not screen for developer assistance before one wins. Right? Because you can't decide.
Yeah, so I've given this thing solid context and he just chose that. Like didn't bug me, he just said, there you go, you lost your online changes.
So there was no context. It just resolved itself.
Yeah, so the documentation says that it would automatically sort it out.
But then, like you have to try and dev that self. That's offline, which that's it will take you. It's a very hard problem to solve. I wasn't even right.
And then like exactly like that all same thing.
Yeah, it's just too complex to figure out. So rather say to yourself, so what? Like this is more for the scenario maybe of I'm doing offline inspections, audits. I'm not having a conflict with anyone else. No one else is changing. It's one thing last. Yeah.
It's not a new problem.
Yeah.
It's any the moment you talk about synchronizing data, that's the first question that comes up. So I don't think there's many good answers to that.
You can see the best of the best people that try to solve it. Remember there was that new client, all those things that we had in the past. And most of the time we ended up two records.
Yeah.
You know, and these are highly paid people that try to solve it.
Yeah, what if someone deletes something while I would like,
It's to be is like I was string, it's only me. And then I work and then something happens with the internet connection or whatever, the next time it's oh, you already have this. I'm like, yeah, no, then it says you have to override your changes.
You're like,
I don't know. Do I?
exactly.
If you want to roll this out, let's say you actually what it says that actually Do you recommend a push down the power app? Windows app into something?
So you could, I think you can push the Windows player down, but I don't think you can push it down. So you have to open this app while in the office on the Windows player, and then they can go and do the quiz.
Was there anything else?
Good. Very fun. So the difference is also that the load data and save data uses files on the local device. Where this actually uses what's it, the database that's used on local Apple, I can't remember now, but it uses a transaction database on the local device. Just the file. Save data.
Not browser, not caching.
I keep going. Keyboard mount. So now, anyway, so it uses the local native database. Any other questions?
So you still need to run it first online so that you can get the current data with the loads.
Yeah, it's not that automatic. It first needs to get there before you
Yeah.
get the reply.
Does it expire at any point?
I'll tell you about a year or so. Right.
I'm just wondering, like, if the user opens that once every 2 months.
Yeah. No, so that's it.
Does your
Oh,
authentication, because usually authentication Power Apps is actually using Azure Active Directory into item. And you've got an authentication token that's only valid for an hour or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But probably
You can open your app offline.
Sure, but the changes would only sync, but when there's still the question of the data, being able to view the data.
Yeah, but like they disable my account. Left the company, but I've still got the mobile app.
You stay offline.
Stay offline 2 weeks and then turn it on. Can you still get the data?
and just don't go online. No, you still be able to get the data. Just won't know about it.
That's where
Yeah, so that's-
But I was just thinking maybe there's an authentication token, spice, that you have to go on at least once a week. Nothing to do with the data. Off.
So that's a very good question, and in other systems that we've worked with in the past, it had this concept of deletion stubs to replace in the database. Because think of it, you have now 2 replicas, you delete it in one and update it in the other one. How does this database know that whatever happens there is a new record that it should place back where it is? So then the deletion trumps all of it. But then what happened was there was a purge interval on those deletion stubs on the databases. And then what happened was somebody had this laptop in a cupboard somewhere for 2 years, and they started this bad boy. And then it just pushes all the things that were deleted, just puts it back in the database. And then it's like, where's this come from? So I'd like to know how this happened. Thinking is usually complex. There's a reason why it's not one of the first features that got released. I don't want to know what happens in the back end.
I wonder if we, well, way you would handle that potentially is if you install apps, right? Every instance of the app is registered. If it hasn't spoken in X amount of time, it gets tombstone, no longer trusted. Very similar to the way an active directory domain controller works. You've got it offline for X amount of time. Any data coming into the system, that device is just ignored.
And that would tie up with the expiration of the token. So it would mind.
Yeah, but it's not your account, it's actually the app itself. The running instance has got its own certificate of some sort. And if it's expired, it just says, well, no longer trusted, we don't trust you. Just ignore it.
The difference between an app and AD is this is always in context of the user.
Yeah.
And never run outside of the context. AD always runs out.
Yeah.
And AD run on a server.
It'd have to come down to manual control.
Yeah.
So something like anything with a timer, obviously. So if the laptop's got a whole bunch of data, when you plug in, check amount of time has to go to admin, and then unfortunately the person has to look at all the stuff. But if they can set all those time actions, let's say it goes to a specific person or gets highlighted more using color, and everything's in the timeline graphically, then you can kind of visually start to see, oh, this thing's going to impact this one. But I mean, the guy has to be really experienced, and then kind of you can select groups and say authorize, approve, approve. This one's looking weird. Let's just pause at this area.
No, I don't think it does that currently.
But I mean, it will come down to me.
Yeah, I think the best, let's go all implement this in production. And as these things start to break, we just compare notes. We develop best practices from there. So yeah, I think these are all very, very good questions. Any easy questions?
Not when it comes to syncing.
So do you think it stores it in SQLite?
That's the word I was thinking.
So it's like, do you think it's like encrypted?
I hope so.
I assume so. I hope so.
So I think Intune covers the device aspect.
Or it can.
And it can revise.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily. Something that you're going to have to set up.
That's something you would want to do with the security team to set up. This is a kiosk device, whatever the case may be. So this will be quality. If it doesn't check in after 6 months, it's probably stolen as well with the device. So in the case.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Kiosk is like you probably shouldn't do offline.
No. Yeah, I'm thinking about in the mines. Like in the mines of mine.
Any other questions? And so we've got 10 minutes. So I'm going to take that, which is a quick one, and then we can jump into general discussion. That general discussion can very easily flow into the pizzas and
I think so.
Right. So what I'm going to show you with the detector is typically you'll have a flow. Right? So, and that's got a whole bunch of logic, and that logic you want to trigger when something happens in the data. So typically you could say that if there's a record that got created, or record that got updated, or record that got deleted, right? And then you will typically have multiple or a trigger. So when it when it creates this record, we want to run the following logic. But in a lot of cases, you want to run very similar logic if that record gets updated. What do? Do you create a second flow now? All right, so what you could also do is you could have your logic in a child flow, and then you could have various trigger flows that form the child flow. So
So if it's an update, it's for trigger flow, if it's create for this.
but typically it's very large. You've got a client that's got 180 flows in one solution, which is absolutely. And then now and then it happens that you update the solution and then the flows are turned on.
Yes, I've seen that.
Oh.
Anyway, so all right, back to the point. So you can either have a child flow with all of your logic in it, and then have multiple trigger flows, or there's a very small little, I almost want to call it an undocumented feature. If you call a flow, if you change a data where something triggers flow from your data, there's a little small prop called SDK message that tells you why it was triggered.
Oh, it's cool.
So this is a flow that I ran earlier. And if I go to the outputs body, you see right at the bottom, it's a little thing called SDK message. So you could tap into that.
I think you can pretty
And then you could just have branches.
Oh,
So you tell your flow to run,
Yeah.
trigger on create and update. And then if it's exactly the same logic, you just write the same logic. But if there's different, usually there's small tweaks.
you want to see
Yeah.
the people like creative.
You can put in a switch statement.
Yeah.
And switch on the
Sorry.
Now,
Why should control you? Yeah, second match.
Also,
Remember, it's got to do what I want.
And there's some functions that.
oh,
Are you using it?
Of course.
ask no question, yeah, no lie. Yeah, so I've just on the new editor, it's happened a couple of times on the mistake. It's getting confused between the versions, and the next thing you say, you know, this thing again, it's like, well,
Yeah, and then there's areas and you don't understand why.
ain't nobody got time for that.
I don't know what's good time for that.
All right, so what you want to do is you want to call the trigger body and call the SDK message. And I'm just going to publish that. So that's going to be the SDK message. And then you can say if it is create, then you want to do something.
Now I'm gonna have to change. Yeah,
And
because
then
I do want less flows.
There's also no, there's also if it's modified, it also tells you which field is modified. Not that property, but there's another property.
That would be.
test it, that'd be amazing.
But I think it only works in database.
So let's check here. Yeah. Like, all right, so actually go and check. And in the modified flow trigger test, so let's go and modify something. See what it does.
It's on board. Thank you.
Doesn't look good. Once, yeah.
Right. Right, so let's go and look for that table. Trigger. Okay, let's go and change test 1 to test 3. Saving it, that is saved. So in theory, no.
Now how to go.
This is something that I've been struggling with today and yesterday as well. Just something on the Dataverse trigger in general. Like, it doesn't trigger at all. Then I change something in the flow, like change something there, and then it just works. And I'm like, why didn't you just work first?
Yeah, my problem is I just changed something. But
Yeah.
there we
Not
go.
answering.
Right, so let's go and see if there's a message that tells us what field changed. So you'll see there it tells me that there was an update.
That's cool.
And let's go and see what other stuff it's hiding from us. So it shows you modified by time.
You see that Ingressol underscore native 3.
Hey?
Yeah, that's what a new value is.
But I think that's just all of the fields from the, because that would give you, because that's why it's giving you modified on and state code and all of those kind of things. All the properties on that. I haven't seen that it gives you the field that it updates.
Well, it's something like that. You can certainly go in here and say, okay, only fire when this one changes.
Yes, but that's on the trigger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You are remember seeing which also see which one changed.
that's the second sector.
I'll go look it up.
So this over here, the filter columns. So there, if you put a, the select columns,
Yeah.
where you tell it which columns to only trigger if one of those changes.
Also, only brings the detail from specific.
That stops you getting into like an infinite loop.
Yes,
So like later on you change the status. Then
No,
it fires and it
fires update, yeah.
So there's, you do that so that you're not interested in running the status control.
So that's a very interesting choice of words, because it's not only when the status column changes, it's if the status column is included in a patch command, even with the same value. Yeah, I figured that out the other day. That's nice. Because Flow was running millions of loops, and I couldn't find it. Then actually, with the support call with Microsoft, this guy shared with me, no, it doesn't need to change the value. If you have an action that updates it to the same value, it's still true. So
That's a good one.
That's very cool.
good. Any other questions on that?
Not on that, but something else before. I think your previous demo, you had a procedure or function or something for in a particular time for that. What was inside?
It was if my app didn't work. So that's it. That's the same app that we just built. For whatever reason, it didn't work. So that's. Right. Any questions?
We have time.
That was an awesome tip.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
So we've got pictures. We're going to chat about how much has AI changed your life,
Yeah.
how much you were using it. Anybody online that wants to tell us how much you were using AI?
I can share it.
Absolutely.
So one of the cloud solution architects, so we've been helping customers with the Copilot journey. And so we got a license to Copilot probably about 6 to 8 months ago. So we've had it for a while. And I think it's a completely different way of thinking about ideas. Excel document or email. You can build some really powerful things that will change the way you prioritize those types of things. So one of the ways that I'm using it now, and I'll just use meetings as an example, is you can record a meeting, whether it's on your phone as an audio file, upload that to Word and transcribe it. Or if you've got Teams, just pull the transcript from Teams and turn that into any sort of document. So if it's a post-meeting update reports, if it's a proposal, if it's quotes, if it's a list of action items, whatever it is, you can transform that data quite easily from one format to another. So that's really changed the amount of admin that we have to get through, and I can get through more meetings, more action items quite a bit quicker. But it takes time to develop those personalized use cases. It really does help. We internally, we're trying to figure out the best way to build some of these reports that we send out. And typically there's a lot of actions that happens through like a consulting engagement in Lead. And to take time to summarize everything that you spoke about, all the potential issues, the blockers, whatever it is, can be really, really time consuming. So instead, what we've been doing is the last meeting of that we recap everything into a recorded meeting. Even if it's for 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the meeting. And then we prompt that document or that transcript to turn it into your book. So that's something I'll share. We're going to present some of this at the Data and AI Conference in Durban. And I'll maybe come and do another Copilot session here.
Great. How does the licensing work? No, sorry, I'm not being facetious. So obviously that could be, if you give it a recording, that's a lot of data. And the reason I ask that is if on ChatGPT there's a concept of tokens.
Yeah.
That's for set number of words and characters. So if you're going to throw the the Matrix movie edit, you're going to play. Is it the same as Copilot? Is it also work with tokens?
No, Copilot does work with tokens, but you are limited in their amount that you can send through in a single request.
The single request, but not cumulatively. So if you want to use 2 million tokens in a month, they're not going to come back and say, you know, I need to pay more.
I don't think so. No, not pay more. You will probably stop, the service will slow down, but I haven't seen limits yet.
So the way I did it with the audio file is actually using Word. You don't even need a E3 or E5 license. It's available in the personal license as well.
Oh, so you're using Word Copilot, not the custom Copilot.
No, just Word.
Just Word.
Just Word. Not even
Just Word.
Copilot.
So if you want to transcribe your file, then transcribe, you can upload your file directly into Word. It supports MP4 and ACC and a bunch of different formats. And then from there, you can summarize that document with a Copilot or any sort of AI model.
So then it's the Word's team. Word team's problem how they provide tokens.
But to give you an idea, a process that was about 57 pages that it generated inside of Word. And then I used Copilot inside of it, so now I'm using the licensed Copilot for MD65, which I think the enterprise pricing is like $30 per user. So to summarize that, it's actually
And typing that up.
People used to.
Yes.
people still do.
Well, people still do.
Yeah.
I just refuse to be in analog meetings.
You've just been in one.
Any questions, any other use cases? User presentation. Any other examples or use cases of AI has changed your life?
So creating projects, so putting projects together into DevOps, for example. You build your user stories, just say, give me acceptance criteria for this user story. And it pops it up relatively accurate. See, modify a few things. That's saving a lot of time. Sure.
You can use Copilot in DevOps now.
Sorry?
You use Copilot in DevOps. Like inside of the
I didn't, but I'm sure you can.
I've seen not for me for the project details, but no. So then the model. So
Anybody else? Michael, sure you've done some interesting stuff.
Lots of interesting. I use every day. Sometimes within the Power Platform, because I'm building something that needs to consume it, see many demos. Sure. But I often use it internally to find stuff like a search, it's like enterprise search. So one of our execs did this big presentation at the Microsoft Build conference. I love the presentation. And I'm like, I want that PPT. It's got amazing stuff in it. I want that. You find it. So I opened up Copilot and I said, I'm looking for a PowerPoint presentation that was presented by this person on this date. And it came back and it said, I can't find the presentation. And then I said, I'm looking for a presentation. And in one of the slides, it had some words. I can't remember what the phrase was. And I said, that has this phrase in it. That came back and it said, here's the presentation.
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is the reason why I first didn't find it is because his name is not mentioned anywhere in the presentation and he's not the author. Because he's an exec, someone else actually built it and did it. He just presented it. But when I just said, I'm looking for it, it's got this phrase in it, I found it. And I couldn't find it using traditional search, and we've got good search. Didn't find it, but as soon as I used Copilot, I found it. And that saved me hours and hours and hours because I just used a presentation that would take days to build like that. So I use it often like that just to find stuff inside of the organization. It's a search engine.
I should really change shirts.
And I remember, like, I put in this RFP document. I want to review some of the stuff. I can't remember where it is. It's in someone's folder somewhere. It's not in mine. I just asked. looking for this RFP that I pulled in, it's Excel file, it's about this. Here it is, link to it, open it, and some of the one time.
So show of hands, if you look for something on the internet, you first go to Bing.
Yep.
Or Copilot.
I'll be
Or
going to,
ChatGPT.
I'll be going to
I
Copilot.
would check.
Copilot, ChatGPT.
Copilot for Microsoft.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
different.
yeah.
There's the free version, which is powered by search. So it's up to that. It's accurate. It's not.
Okay, everyone.
And that's done. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Let's get some food.
Recordings will be uploaded.
Yeah.